Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. My guest today is Dustin Riechmann. He is a successful entrepreneur with multiple online businesses. He knows how to grow your business without relying on paid ads. With 18 years of experience in engineering consulting, Dustin pivoted his career and now coaches online business owners for exponential growth. Dustin's digital marketing firm, Engage Digital Solutions, is a small agency that specializes in growing e-commerce businesses to seven figures without using paid ads. Today, he is sharing his actionable tips on marketing and e-commerce growth that you can apply to your business. Really excited to have this conversation today. Dustin, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Absolutely, Jeff. Thanks for having me. I look forward to serving your audience today and hopefully giving them some very actionable takeaways so they can improve their marketing and grow their business.
I love it. So I need to hear a little bit about this background, right? You go from so I hear a lot of people do pivot, including my stepdaughter, coincidentally. She pivoted from an engineering degree to a marketing position. And I'm curious to hear a little bit about your background, but also how do you feel that the engineering training that you received serves you well in the marketing aspects and how you run your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, as you mentioned, my background, my degrees, I have a master's degree in civil engineering with a specialty in traffic engineering. So it's pretty nerdy stuff. It's pretty detailed, technical aspect of my career. Of course, it morphed over the years into management and team building and sales and all those things. So I got much more in tune into marketing even in my engineering career, and I became a partner in the firm. So it was definitely entrepreneurial. But what it really came up for me throughout my career, and looking back, of course, you can connect the dots much more easily, is this bug was always there. I was always doing things entrepreneurial that were outside of my 9 to 5, or in many cases, it was like a 7 to 6 type of career in consulting. And that dates back all the way to 2009. So I had an online business that I started. I grew out of a ministry that my wife and I were doing called Engaged Marriage. It actually still exists today, engagemarriage.com. And through that, I learned digital marketing. I created online courses. We have a membership site that's still thriving and creating a lot of content. So that kind of was my first foray really officially into what I would consider true digital marketing. And then from there, I got into serving clients, doing digital marketing services, mostly for local clients. That was complete referral based. I was still doing engineering, but I'd be like literally sitting in my dentist chair for a checkup, and we would have a conversation, and marketing would come up, and he became one of my clients. My realtor became a client. A restaurant I visited became a client. And so just the more I talked about these things, people were excited. They could sense my passion. Then in 2018, right at the beginning of 2018 is when I left engineering for good and jumped right into all that consulting work. One of my clients there was a local butcher shop guy, and he was about my age, and we hit it off. And of course, I started doing his marketing for his brick and mortar shops. And at that time, I was doing a lot of what I would call consulting. I was doing a lot of implementation work and actually doing the work. Our relationship took off quickly, and he told me about this brand that he had created in the back of his butcher shop that he sold locally, but he really wanted to bring it online. So people may look me up and they may see the brand Fire Creek Snacks associated with me more than anything. And that is my e-commerce business. I'm now a partner with him in that. And that's really where I've cut my teeth in kind of modern digital marketing and the topic of partnership marketing that we're going to focus on today. So I serve a lot of e-commerce businesses because I'm an e-commerce business owner. I'm still actively involved. I'm the CEO of that company. But I also work with a lot of coaches, a lot of consultants, a lot of course creators, because I've done all those things too. And I've had clients over the years in kind of every niche, local and online. But that kind of maybe gives you some background into how you get from engineering and that transition out into marketing consulting, and then finally into marketing coaching and strategic help based on my own experience in growing what's now a 7-figure e-commerce business.
What an amazing story. I also find it very interesting about how the ministry part plays into this, right? Because basically, and I'll correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not a minister, right? But being in a ministry and helping other people get through get through their challenges and get through, whatever it is that's vexing them in their relationships, either with God or family or business, whatever it is, right? That does take a lot of patience, takes a lot of empathy, and it takes a lot of understanding as well. How do you
Yep.
feel that that has that helps you move forward and address the concerns of your now clients, full on businesses that need your services?
Yeah, I really appreciate you picking up on that. I've literally been called by people an empathetic engineer, right? And I mean that in an endearing way, meaning I think systematically, I think about problem solving. To kind of answer your first question, I see what I do with marketing and coaching as no different than what I did with traffic engineering, in the sense that you have to define a problem, you have to create a strategy, you have to take action, you need accountability, you have to, it's that same kind of process as problem solving, and that's why I really appreciate of my engineering training and all those years I worked on so many types of projects and with different types of clients. And you'll see, if you look at a lot of Fortune 500 type companies, a lot of CEOs are actually engineers, by training. So that's not uncommon to not have a business background. But the other side of that coin is, the ministry side. The stereotypical engineer is cold, calculated, and systematic, right? But they aren't empathetic, and they don't really get into that softy, feely side. And I would say that I felt that was me. I would have described myself in my first 5 years of engineering as just like traditional, let's get results type of engineer. But I did have this other thing going on in my life, where my wife and I were doing a lot of in-person marriage ministry retreats, helping married couples or engaged couples prepare for marriage, things like that. Basically telling our own story and sharing our own lessons for people that were just a few years behind us in the journey. And I also had this desire to be creative. And so we were doing all this stuff offline. We were doing it in church basements, and it felt so old school for these couples that were, very tech, very into technology and things in the mid 2000s and leading into when I started the blog in 2009. So yeah, it was you kind of you throw all this stuff in a in a shaker, and you mix it up, and you have ministry and empathy and technical skills and know-how enough to not be intimidated to like go create a website, all the way up into I guess the ambition, like during those several years where I was doing a lot of marketing and a lot of engineering as a day job. I would literally take vacation time from engineering to go to digital marketing conferences, which my wife didn't like too much. But I'm multi-passionate, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are too, right? Like, we're very few people that are ambitious and are successful in business are, we try to be niched and we try to be laser focused, right? But we're all typically multi-passionate, and controlling that and making good out of it, not letting it be a distraction, I think is a real secret weapon for many entrepreneurs.
I love how you articulated that, right? Being multi-passionate. I haven't heard that term yet, but it perfectly sums up exactly what it is that we are, right? Because you can I get excited off of seeing billboards. Like, lately, this may sound like it's off topic, but it's really not. I've been a streaming guy for like 10 years, right? Meaning I didn't pay for cable, and I had Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime, right? That's how I consumed content. And
Yep.
then we moved. So now we're in this, now we're in this new house, and it turned out it was cheaper to get cable plus internet instead of just internet on its own. So what happens? Now we have cable, right? So now we have these commercials, and my wife is just looking at it. She's just fascinated. She's like, "How else am I supposed to learn the brands?" Right? And I start looking at it as well as like, well, yeah, that's one way to look at it, right? But I'm still like, okay, can I fast forward through this? Can I go through it? And what happens is that, like, I'm looking at these brands and the way these commercials are constructed in a much different manner than she is. She's just looking at it in terms of, trying to get to know what's available and how she can, whether the product will actually serve her in the house or in the business or what have you. Whereas I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, what demographic are they targeting? Why did this commercial use people with masks and another group of commercials didn't? Things like that. I'm always breaking that kind of stuff apart. And the multi-passionate part, I think, really fits in. So I'm really glad that you hit on that. I'd like to switch gears for a few minutes and talk a little bit about your thrust, right? Which is, like, having a digital marketing agency comes with the baggage of, I'm going to spend my clients' money on all kinds of different things in order
Right.
to get the word out. And what happens is that you get a lot of noise in the background saying, oh, you got to spend at least $10,000 on paid ads, or you got to do blogs, you got to do podcasts, you got to do lives. There are all these things that you could potentially spend your effort on, whether it's time, money, or both. Let's talk a little bit about your one big tip and partnership marketing and how that can be so big, especially in an e-commerce environment, right? Where you're selling tangible products and you're actually, you're getting something physical into the hands of someone else. How does that look in your world?
Absolutely. So first of all, just to define partnership marketing in a really simple sense, what I would say is it's borrowing other people's audiences, right? It's getting your message in front of someone else's audience, typically for free, in a way that provides a win-win-win situation. A podcast is a perfect example. It's certainly not the only example, and I can walk through one of our quick case studies for Fire Creek to show a kind of a multi six-figure example of how this worked out. But just think of a podcast as a really simple example of a partnership. I, as a marketing coach in this case, can get on here and share this framework and this expertise so that your audience hopefully gets a win, right? They can go take action on this and they get a win. Jeff is the host. He is inviting me on because he needs good content, right? And so it's a win for him if he can continue to pump out really good podcasts that draws a large audience. And then for me, it should be a win because I get my name out there. I'm going to have a call to action at the end. I want to encourage people to possibly hire me and work with me to implement partnership marketing for their business. So that's the win-win-win dynamic. And so when I say partnership marketing, podcasts are a really simple case study, a really simple example. And in fact, we almost always start with podcasts when we're working with clients because they get it easily. And it's something very tangible and it's something we can get quick results with. Other types of partnerships, you can think of like more high leverage things like joint venture webinars, speaking opportunities, brand collaborations. All these things are leading with the win, with the possibility of a win coming back. And one that's been really successful for us with Fire Creek Snacks, my e-commerce brand, was a subscription box placement. It actually grew out of a podcast. And if you don't mind, Jeff, I'll share the 30-second, 1-minute story on what transpired with that. There's a company called Snack Nation that people may be familiar with. They've rebranded to Karoo, but I think their actual core business is still called Snack Nation. They basically partner with Fortune 500 and other large companies. They provide better for you snacks to employees. So they were doing that in the workroom, in the office, right? And then COVID happened. So in the summer of 2020, I happened to find this guy on LinkedIn that had commented, and I looked at his profile and found out he worked at Snack Nation. I'd never even heard of Snack Nation because I didn't work at any of those big companies. But he was basically saying in his post that he's now working from home. They had to pivot their whole business model. It was kind of crisis mode. So I offered to send him a DM, and I said, hey, send you some snacks. I know you're working from home. I have some great, better for you snacks. I didn't really expect to get much of a response because they worked with big brands. So he accepted, and I sent him to his house. He responded back and told me that it was the best teriyaki snack stick he'd ever had. So we make craft meat snacks, basically, right? And he invited me to have a small placement in a Snack Nation subscription box. And for him, small was like 8,000 boxes. And we thought, super. It was a donation, so we had to give them the product, so we led with a win for them. They got free product, but we got the opportunity to say we were featured in Snack Nation. They gave us some customer feedback. It was great. It went really well. The reviews went well. So I leveraged this new partnership to say, hey, you guys have a podcast called Brand Builder. We'd love to come on and tell our story. We know we're much smaller than most brands, but your audience might enjoy this kind of bootstrap grassroots story. And we did that. And it was amazing success. Lots of great relationships have grown out of that. New distributors, just a lot of direct benefit. But again, the biggest benefit was the relationships. Now I know the vice president of Snack Nation because he was one of the hosts. And that was kind of it, right? So this was end of 2020, early 2021, I think, when that podcast came out. I saw George left. This is the guy, my initial contact. He left Snack Nation and went to do something else. And I saw that on LinkedIn, never thought another thing of it. Well, January 2022, so fairly recently, this is almost, at least a year, maybe 18 months after I thought this partnership had ended, I get an email from someone at Snack Nation, and she says, hey, I replaced George in the meat snacks buyer now. And rather than do small allocations, I wanted to go back and I reviewed your reviews and I listened to all the podcast episodes for the people in my category. And I love your story. You guys look like a great brand. I'd like to place a purchase order for the second, third, and fourth quarters of 2022, which she has now done, and we have started to fulfill. And this is 600,000 snack sticks. So it's by far, our biggest customer ever. and they're not donations. We're getting paid, and so we're getting great exposure for our brand, and we're making profit directly. And it literally all grew out of a single leading with the win, offering samples to someone on LinkedIn, and deepened into a podcast, which resulted in this, not even with the same person, but we planted these seeds. And that's the mindset I really like to leave with people, is like, I can get you a partnership. We can get it lined up. You'll get direct benefit. Like, you'll make some sales, and that's all good. But you can't, the intangible thing, and I know that you know this from being a podcast host, Jeff, is you're planting so many seeds and you're creating so many relationships, both directly with the podcast host in this example, in the audience. Like we could go on forever. I've had marketing internships. I had a 1-hour Zoom call with the lead meat snacks buyer at Walmart because someone in finance at Walmart heard my story and really liked it and introduced us. It goes on and on. But the relationships are kind of that 10x effect. And you start to feel that after you've done 3 to 5 really high quality partnerships. Like the momentum builds, it kind of becomes this marketing flywheel if you do it in a systematic way. And that's kind of what I preach. Like, that was one example that sounds like random, but that example happens because I focus once a week on forming a partnership for each of my brands. And it's literally taken us to 7 figures with Fire Creek, and we don't do paid ads, and this is an e-commerce company. So that's pretty unusual. And when we do paid ads, I find that this is a great amplifier of those efforts.
I love that story, right? Simply,
I do too.
I think the biggest thing, that's blowing my mind right now is, like you said, you're planting a lot of seeds. You're not just going out and planting one. You're not just, oh my God, I hope this one person listens to it, right? And it may seem like you're doing this buckshot approach, like just throwing everything out there and, and seeing where it lands, but the truth of the matter is, this is, pretty strategic. You're coming on my business oriented podcast, and figuring out where is the best place for you to devote your time and your effort in order to talk about your story. It is very strategic, right? And there are so many of these channels out there. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm no Joe Rogan. Like, I'm not going to get millions of views.
Sure.
And that's really not my goal, right? My goal is to get the information that I think is interesting, right? And I've been around long enough that if I think it's interesting, I'm sure there are 10 people behind me that do as well. And if I can get just one person to think about, like, hey, I heard it from Jeff, who heard it from Dustin, who paid it forward that way. That's it. Game over. I'm good. I can go home and sleep at night, and it's great. And that's really what it comes down to, right? Is, you're you can call it anything you want. Let's just call it good karma for now, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it really pays off these really great dividends, and it leaves a trail. It leaves a trail that you can see because, like you said, like this podcast or someone or other podcasts that you have been on, they live for years, on
Yes.
on the internet. Someone can go back and listen to what you did in 2017 and it would still be relevant, right? And
Yeah.
that's really the secret sauce of what it is that we're doing here today.
Yeah, and we talk about that as one of those core benefits, right? Like the long tail. There's this long tail effect. I literally, I've done podcasts 2 years ago, and I still have people emailing me, "Oh, I heard you on, such and such show," and I forgot I even did it. Or I forgot what I even talked about. But because people pick stuff up later, and another intangible benefit as a marketer, as a digital marketer, you'll appreciate is SEO, right? Search engine optimization. So some people are really focused on that, and then they really struggle with getting backlinks, which is one of the most difficult parts of really good SEO. Like my Engaged Marriage brand is it's a pure organic traffic, type of business. And I have all these backlinks, and in that case, not mostly from podcasts, but from being guest blog posting and stuff we did, back 10 years ago, that was super effective. That has this long tail effect. And yeah, I know you like to keep these fairly short, Jeff. So whenever you're ready, I'd love to just give people like the 4-step framework so they can think about how this would apply to their own business.
Before we do that, there is one other thing I want to talk to you about. You talked about the amplification effect of paid ads. And one of the things that's been happening in our marketplace, over the past year, 2 years, with how Apple is closing off Facebook's audience building, things like that. Ads in and of themselves, effective ads that get really targeted, that really talk, to your core demographic, are getting more expensive. right? So
Yep.
as a business, you should be looking for cheaper to free types of traffic. But at the same time, if you do decide to go the paid route, you can amplify that message to a degree that it needs, frankly, that it needs to be heard. My question here is, at what point, where do you see the tipping point where you feel that your organic reach has hit this peak, and it's like, okay, now I feel comfortable investing, real dollars into a campaign that will bring me this, this extra growth that I need to bring it over the edge.
Yeah, like I said, I see it as amplification, and so this is going to vary for every business, right? If you're a high ticket coach or you're a marketing consultant, those sort of things, to me, you could easily be, 6 and 7 figures just with partnership marketing. I would probably still incorporate ads, but it would be in more of a retargeting sense, right? So if someone's heard me on Jeff's podcast, they looked up my website, and then they bounced and went away, like maybe I can remind them of what I do, or offer them, an opportunity for a consultation, or a, free download informational type of thing. So and that's a lot of what we've done with Fire Creek. Again, Fire Creek's an e-commerce business. We have tried in the early stages of that business, 2019 especially, to just go straight off ads. And that's what a lot of businesses do. We had some success, but it just wasn't, it wasn't deep success, right? You get a lot of one-off purchasers and things like that. What I found by pivoting and focusing on partnership marketing and building like a deeper relationship with our customers on the front end, even with, like, it sounds kind of silly, right? I'm talking about selling meat sticks, but people are very loyal to our brand. Like, we have a ridiculous retention rate, and a lot of subscribe and stay type customers, because many of them were introduced to our brand by hearing our brand story. They've heard me talk about how it's affected my own life. They've heard Ryan, my business partner's story. He's a third generation butcher. He has a kid with a food allergy. Like, the reason he created this stuff is very compelling. And so it's just a deeper connection. And so for an e-commerce brand, sometimes we kind of want to be transactional. We want to get return on ad spend, and we do some of that stuff. But I think, flipping over to maybe what a lot of your listeners are, if they are a coach, a course creator, they're a consultant, those types of more high touch services, this is like a complete no brainer, right? And you can't even compete. Ads can't compete with it, in my opinion, because you're developing a relationship on the front end. Like, if we're on here for 20 minutes, someone hears some of my story, they get some emotional tie. If I'm telling the story of Fire Creek and how it's affected my kids' lives, I mean, like, they're sticky customers because they already know you. Like, you've camped out in their ears for 20 to 60 minutes telling your story, and it's just, I don't know. There's nothing that can compare to it. And the other partnerships are similar, right? Because they're typically, in those cases, they're referrals or endorsements. There's authority that's implied. I mean, all this stuff that you try to do in marketing through a funnel and through a system, you can do like in an hour or less in a good partnership. So that's not, again, it's not to discount ads. There's a place for ads. We pay for ads, but it's secondary, in my opinion, for the way that I like to run my businesses. So.
I love it. What a great answer. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
Dustin, now I'd love for you to offer you the spot. Please tell everyone how they can learn more about you and how they can reach out to you directly. If they want to learn more. I mean, I have to imagine that you do get a lot of requests, for speaking, and you do a lot of pay it forward. So please let everyone know how they can reach you directly.
Yeah. So if this intrigued you and you're interested in partnership marketing, or just, taking that next step in your own business, that's what I do. It's called simplesuccesscoaching.com. It's a very simple website. And I believe in simplicity in business. I believe in making these things a system. So if this sounded intriguing to you and you thought, wow, it'd be really cool if I was on a podcast every week, or I had a partnership every week to feature my brand and tell my story, what I want to encourage you is, it can sound like a lot of work, and getting it implemented, is work. Of course, there's always work in anything that's of value. But what we really specialize in is helping you implement this as a system, to where you basically show up and you take advantage of these partnerships without having to do all the back end work. Like, that's what we help you do. So, so it's a 4-step framework. We can walk you through that. And in fact, if you go to simplesuccesscoaching.com and you click on partnership Marketing 101 right at the top of the page. There's a free blueprint there. It's a short video training with me walking you through the 4 steps that we take every client through. So you can do it yourself if that's what you like to do. If you'd like to talk further about how we could help you with it and actually make it a system to where it's just an asset to your business rather than a burden, then there's another button right next to it to do a free consultation call. And we would love to just unpack where you're at with your business and see how partnership marketing can amplify or even become your primary marketing channel.
I love it. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a lot of fun. I love talking about this stuff. And I really feel that this, the whole idea of setting up these, setting up these conversations and just being authentic, putting it out there is really what a lot of businesses need. And it's so much more effective, I think, than just, plastering ads or putting up billboards or, all that other stuff. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely, Jeff. It's been